Today on Rambling About Cars, everybody wants to save the manuals. How about saving the convertibles? You can put a manual in an SUV. We know how terrible an SUV looks as a convertible.
Some of them.
We love convertibles. We want to make sure they stick around. So we're talking ragtops today, but also, this is big. We're doing our ode to fans, our ode to the Rambling About Cars listeners. We've had just a lot more comments over the last few weeks. We love it. We love hearing from you. So we're going to talk a lot of comments. We're going to talk a lot about what you want to talk about. And if you're listening, send us comments on it and we'll talk about it next week. Rambling Roadies, it's podcast time. I'm Christopher Smith. Across the way is Chris Bruce.
Hey, everybody. So before we get into the meat of the episode, we got to talk about something.
Yep.
As we covered at the end of the episode last week, Motor One Rambling About Cars has a new home, and that's Motor One Podcasts. And you can see that here for anyone watching the video. If not, it's Motor One Podcast on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and comment. I know every freaking video you watch on YouTube says that, but
we're brand new.
Yeah, we had to start this new channel. Right now, we are just getting off the ground, and we need all the help we can get, both to get more people watching, to show our bosses, to make them happy. We need your help. So like, comment, subscribe. That's all we're asking.
I mean, right now we put out new episodes every Friday. So you're not going to be getting, the little ding on your phone or your tablet every 2 hours.
Nope.
We're doing a one episode a week. That's going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. God knows, Bruce, you and I could talk about cars every single day. We could do one of these every single day. Maybe in the ideal future. But for right now, one episode a week. And yeah, this is a brand new channel. We're here because we've been growing. We're growing. We're getting the better audience, and that calls for our own channel. So Motor One Podcast. Yes, like, subscribe. It'll help us shine in the eyes of YouTube, which will bring more people in. We can have more of these crazy conversations. We're not going to hammer you over the head anymore, though, because we need to talk about convertibles. This is something that's kind of near and dear to me. I've always loved convertibles. I grew up with convertibles. I grew up with a very, very large convertible, a 1960 Cadillac Series 62,
that's a big one.
You sit in the back seat, and you're in a different time zone than the front seat. And it had a power antenna. And I remember you could put the power antenna up, and it's like, okay, can we talk to Russia now with this antenna? It reached it was like 30 feet in the air, it seemed like. So I love convertibles. I have one right now, but in the age of SUV, what's going to happen to convertibles? I mean, we already know there aren't nearly as many as they used to be. But should we be concerned? Is this something to be concerned about? People are worried about the manuals going away, but you can always put a manual in an SUV.
You can put a manual in anything, just about.
Put a manual in anything. So should we be concerned about convertibles?
So talking about this, we did a little bit of research. So if you want to get kind of pseudo-technical, I don't know if you want to count it or not, the cheapest convertible on the market is the Polaris Slingshot. Granted, it has 3 wheels, no roof, no windshield. You can get kind of sort of a windshield. That's $20,000. We're going to throw that out, but some commenter was going to bring it up. So there.
Good call.
For you, that guy, there's your Polaris Slingshot.
Good call.
The cheapest real convertible on the market is the Mazda Miata, with a base price of $26,830 right now. And all of these prices I'm going to be mentioning are without destination fee.
Mm-hmm.
But do you want to guess? Okay, so it's actually not the second least expensive. The second least expensive is the mini convertible for $27,900. Do you want to guess what the third least expensive convertible on the market is right now, or soon to be?
Is that Fiat's version of the Miata, the 124?
No, that's dead, dude. That's been dead for a couple of years.
I thought you could still get one of those running around.
I'll double check as we're talking about this. But
I could well be wrong, because I mean, do you really need 2 versions of the same car? The one I thought the 124, at least it looked better. I mean, from there. Gosh. Let
me answer for you.
It's probably going to be like a Mustang or a Camaro.
No, this one's quite a bit cheaper than that, actually. The Ford Bronco, which is not technically on sale yet, will be here in the coming months. $28,500 is the base price, super base price of a Ford Bronco. Your Mustang convertible that you just mentioned, base price of a Mustang convertible, $32,705.
The selection is slim, but I gotta ask, because I think this is a good point for debate, and I'm sure listeners are going to ask the same question. Are vehicles like the Bronco and the Wrangler, yes, they have a removable top. You can have open air driving. At the very least,
what is a convertible if it's not open air driving?
Are you going to push a button and have the roof all the way down, obscured away with nothing around the sides on a Bronco or a Jeep?
You're not going to push a button on a Miata either. It's a manual top.
Well, you know what I mean, though. It's a manual top, but you reach up, you flip it back in 10 seconds, it's done. I know on the Jeep Wrangler, they do have a power top, but really that's like a big moon roof that slides back. Then you still have to get out. You still have to, if you really want the proper experience, you still have to get out. You have to manually take off the sides. You have to find a place to stow that stuff. Yes. I mean, technically you can call it a convertible, but
you're converting it from a closed vehicle to an open vehicle. What more convertible can you get? And
I want a convertible that doesn't have any roll bars sticking up, that doesn't have any door sills still sticking up on the sides. I want to put the top down in like 15 seconds, have it stowed neatly in the back, put the windows down, no pillars sticking up, nothing between me and the outside air except a windshield. For me, that's a proper convertible. I won't argue that a Bronco or a Wrangler aren't convertibles, because they have a soft top, or they can have a hard top that you can also remove. But it's a different genre. You see what I'm saying?
I do. So two things. So to answer your Fiat question, they were retired for the 2020 model year.
Oh, so man.
There's no Fiat 124. And secondly, you were saying you want no like roll bars and things like that. Well, friend, I got a question for you.
I know where you're going with this, so go ahead and hit me with it.
Shelby GT350 convertible. That's a roll bar.
That's a style bar.
Oh, now you're just nitpicking. Come on. I was just trying to,
You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, but I had to get pedantic with you.
You can have a Wrangler that is completely open. But to do that, you have to swap your doors around so you have the low doors, right? You have to remove the top manually by hand. The new ones, I know they have the sliding feature, but that's not even properly stowed away. When I have my convertible, I don't want to see the top. I want my car that has absolutely no top, absolutely no hint of a top, no hint of B-pillars sticking up, no hint of doors sticking up. For me, that's a proper convertible.
Okay, I respectfully disagree. But
you can that's fine. You can disagree. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. It just means you disagree.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2 points. We both have our thoughts on this.
They are both convertibles, but I think it's an easy argument to make that they are completely different genres of convertibles.
Oh, totally. But to that extent, the Fiat 124 we were just talking about and the Cadillac you had as a kid, those are two completely different genres.
Yeah, you could say that. One very large, one very small. But
also can seat 4 people. But the concept, convertible,
but the concept of the top completely disappearing is the same. And I think that's where you draw the line. Okay.
Sure.
On the Bronco, on the Wrangler, you can remove the top, but it's never going to completely disappear. I mean, like on the Bronco, you still have the rails along the top. On the Wrangler, you'd still have the rails along the top. You'd still have the roll bars inside, which are functional roll bars, but that is a little bit different than a style bar. I know there are a lot of convertibles that have the regular roll bars. That's in there for safety purposes.
Right.
There's some gray area there.
That's the point I was just about to bring up, is that it's a safety concession, I think, more than a styling concession. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put words in the designer's mouth, but I think if they could, they would probably remove those things too. But for rollover safety reasons,
well, Think about the original Bronco, though.
True.
The original Bronco didn't have any of that stuff. And honestly, would I want a completely open roof off-roader like that with no protection? Hell no. Nope. I'm happy with the Wranglers and the Broncos the way they are. For me, it's just not the same. It's not in the same category as a proper traditional convertible. That's all.
So did you do research? One of us were going to look up kind of. So there was this point in like the 1960s, 1970s, and I'll be sharing an image of this right now, where there was this thought by some automakers that the convertible could go away simply for legislative reasons out of safety.
Right.
And that's where you get your Porsche 911 Targa, which here's an image for our YouTube viewers right now. This is an ad, and it's an ad for a 911 Targa, and it says, "No convertible should be without it, Dr. Ferry Porsche." And it's an ad for the Porsche 911 Targa, and basically it's for pure safety reasons, that it's basically a big roll hoop that you still get to enjoy open air driving, but with this kind of safety feature added in.
Right. And yeah, you're absolutely right on that, Bruce. In the late 60s, early 70s, of course, the auto industry in the United States specifically they were really concerned about various government regulations that were being introduced with regards to safety. I mean, of course, through the 60s, I mean, you had the mandatory installation of seat belts. Beyond that, you had the 5 mile per hour bumpers, all of these other safety regulations. And it seemed like convertibles would be going away just because, okay, if you're in a rollover, there's absolutely no protection over your head. Yeah, absolutely right on that. Prior, hi Cooper, how you doing, Cooper? Prior to that, see, he agrees with me too.
He does.
That the Bronco and the Wrangler, not really the same. He wants to have a nice open roof where he can just enjoy all the sun. Anyways,
he loves the sunroof, by the way.
Prior to that, a lot of people may not realize once upon a time you could have just about anything in a convertible. It wasn't just a little small runabout. There were big full-size cars. Generally, as long as they had 2 doors, you could put the roof down. You could get a convertible version of it, just like the Cadillac I was talking about. That car was like 18 feet long or something like that. And the convertible roof on that, I think, was probably about as long as a new Miata is right now.
Oh, it probably is. Here, real quick for our YouTube, this is the image I was actually looking for before. This is an old school Porsche ad, and it says, "Someday all convertibles will have a roll bar, the new Targa by Porsche." Like, that's how they were selling it back in the day. Porsche was like, "This is a safety innovation."
Yep.
And it's a cool ad, but yeah.
Right. And because of just the way things were going with regulations, automakers were preparing themselves for, okay, convertibles are going to be outlawed and that's going to be it. So you saw the decline of the convertible. I think the last production convertible for quite a few years in the United States, thankfully, it was Cadillac, my favorite brand here for big old convertibles. They had, I think it was the 1976 Cadillac El Dorado, I think, was the final convertible. And if you've ever seen one, I'm going to pull one up here right now. If you've never seen one, I mean, they are huge.
Yeah. My uncle had, I think, a 72 or 73, and I rode in it once, and it was,
that's also.
I was a kid at the time, and you couldn't reach forward to the front seat. It was huge.
And look how long the hood is. That's also a front wheel drive car. A lot of people forget. That's a front wheel drive, massive V8 convertible, 2-door. For several years, that was the last factory built convertible you could get in the United States, the 76 Cadillac El Dorado. But here's the thing. These regulations that automakers feared were coming kind of never did.
No, they never happened.
And as a result, there were quite a few aftermarket companies that would make that would offer convertible versions of manufacturer cars.
Cadillac,
just
especially,
done,
I think, was
done on the aftermarket.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think the Mustang went that way for a little while.
I hadn't heard that. Okay.
What else? I mean, yeah, a lot of the Cadillacs. You could still get a few convertibles through the 80s. There were conversions done. Thing is, they were really expensive because now not only did you have the car, now you had to pay for the extra cost of having it sent out to some shop to get the conversion made. It's always going to be more expensive than doing it at the factory. But yeah, there's a little history of convertibles in the United States, and I'm sure overseas automakers were also eyeing those regulations. I mean, United States, obviously a big market, and convertibles never really came back after that. They never rebounded properly.
Right. So while we're talking about those interesting conversions, so there was this company, I suspect they started in like the late 70s, but they were really kind of a thing throughout the 80s. It was called ASC, the American Sunroof Company, and they did a lot of the conversions of various vehicles. So here we're going to look at, this is a Toyota Celica called the Sun Chaser. And yeah, it's a Targa style in the Porsche name, where you've still got that big roll hoop, but open otherwise. And yeah, that was kind of the way that it was done, that companies would have contracts with ASC. And since, open air cars were difficult to, borderline impossible to get in the United States at the time, this was the solution to kind of modify hardtop vehicles to have roofs like this or other versions of this.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, that just looks fantastic, man. I love those. I love that era Toyota, just about everything they had. That's such a great looking.
You're not going to get any fight from me.
I also think, and I'm just going off the top of my head here, I'm trying to remember. I think there was a company in Southeast Michigan, Cars and Concepts, that would do convertible conversions. Of course, I mean, being located in Southeast Michigan, that was really convenient for Detroit automakers that were in the area. But yeah, man, that era saw the convertible just about die, and it never came back. The idea of having a large, full-size convertible at that point was gone.
You kind of had the return of kind of the mid-size-ish convertible with, like, I'm thinking like the Chrysler Sebring, a little bit smaller than that. You had the Mitsubishi Eclipse convertibles. You had things like that. Obviously, the Mustang and Camaro were always around, or Camaro took that time off. But those were kind of the stalwarts. But
and I tell you what, I'm glad you mentioned the Sebring. This is a car that I don't think gets enough love. That first generation Sebring.
Love, but okay, I'll pull up a picture.
I mean, come on. No, I'm too late. I've already got one, man. When these cars came out, I mean, I think that is just extraordinarily pretty. I think that is a beautiful car. It's a mid-sized car. It's not a performance car. I mean, they're front-wheel drive.
Yep.
They were fairly, I won't say they were sluggish, but I mean, they were just mad.
They were not performance
when it came to performance.
It was a cruiser, not a performance car.
And that's really kind of the difference today. Just about every convertible on the market has some sort of performance.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that. The last one I can think of is the Buick Cascada or Cascada, however they wanted people to say that name. That was kind of the last non-performance oriented convertible that I can think of. I mean, you've got your Mercedes E-Class, S-Class, but that's such a high price that the normal person can't afford it. Whereas,
you're talking about a premium vehicle there that even in their mundane forms still have some performance pedigree. We're looking at that Buick right now on YouTube. It's been a while since I've seen one, and I understand why, because it looks awkward to me. The proportions just don't look
it's
right.
Not a beautiful car by any stretch, but it existed. Like, they tried. It just, people didn't buy them, and maybe for valid reasons in that case. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I think over time they've gotten away from the idea of an everyday car or a larger car has a convertible.
Right.
Convertibles are strictly for small performance machines that aren't everyday cars, that are specialty cars. And once upon a time, it wasn't that way.
No.
And I'll be honest, I really missed that. I mean, I have an older Mustang convertible in the garage. I would be happy with a nice mid-size convertible, and I think a lot of people would. They don't necessarily want something that's hardcore performance. They just want to have a nice cruiser that they can put the roof down, enjoy the sun, enjoy the breeze. Am I wrong on that, Bruce?
No, I agree with you. No,
but I mean, then again,
I'm on your side.
I mean, we look at sales of sedans, and anything that's not an SUV. I mean, realistically, at this stage of the game, at this stage of the automotive game, we're talking about probably a very, very niche market for a larger convertible.
Oh, totally.
I mean, you still get it. I mean, an M8 or the BMW the 8 convertible.
Yeah, the 8 Series, or they have an M8. But yeah,
that's not small.
No,
but it's also quite expensive.
So just real quick, as we kind of wind down on this conversation, I think this is kind of a part of all of this, is that automakers do not build the vast number of variants of a model that they used to. We are looking at an ad for the 1956 Chevrolet lineup. There are 19 different versions of the 56 Chevrolet, one of which is a convertible, but otherwise it is just a huge smattering of various versions of coupes, sedans, wagons. Automakers don't do this anymore because it's kind of not financially feasible anymore. But there was a time when it was. And so that era, the 30s, 40s, 50s, even into the 60s, automakers would have a convertible as that was just a natural version that you would offer in addition to your coupe or sedan or whatever. Whereas that really started to change in the 1970s, both because of the regulations we talked about and just kind of the economy changed in large part in the United States. And yeah, it's just different now.
I mean, you could almost argue that automakers are sort of doing this now. It's just they're doing it with a gazillion different forms of SUVs that all have the same platform underneath. It's not a big deal to just bolt on some different fenders and give it a different name. I don't think it's quite to that degree of 19 different versions of a 56 Chevy, but the concern here for me, though, is obviously we don't have large convertibles or even really mid-sized convertibles anymore.
Right.
As SUVs continue to move forward, will we see the convertible eventually die?
It will never die, I don't think. Especially like you have a company like Mazda who still, like we were saying, has not only the cheapest convertible you can buy on the market, but arguably I can't really, in a qualitative way, I can't think of a bad thing about the current Miata. Obviously, you can't haul lumber with it or 4 to 6 people with it or things like that. But for $26,000, you are getting a very, very good vehicle that ticks all the boxes and lets you put the top down.
But does it tick all the boxes though? Because here's the thing: if I have $26,000, or we'll say I have $30,000,
okay,
a nice round number to spend, and I can only get one car. I don't necessarily need an SUV, but I need something that's going to have a back seat with some space. I need something that's going to have a modestly functional trunk. It's an everyday car, but I love my convertible. I love on a nice day putting the roof down. I can't get the Miata.
Sure.
It just doesn't have that practicality.
You're right.
So
I can't fight you there.
So what are we looking at then? A Mustang or a Camaro?
I don't know that those offer. I mean, other than the extra pair of seats, that's not that much more practicality, right. I would argue.
Right. But I mean, a car like, sorry, folks, the car like that Chrysler Sebring, I know I'm going to get all kinds of hate mail, but the second generation was pretty ugly. They got the proportions off. But man, that first generation was just a fantastic looking car. And it had a sizable trunk. It had a sizable back seat. I mean, if something like that was available somewhere at a reasonable price, I got to think some people would go for it.
But no one bought that Buick that we were looking at, the Cascada. Like,
yeah, but
that wasn't
a pretty car.
Sure. Okay.
And I mean, I hate to bring this picture up. If you're on YouTube, you might want to look away. There's been talk of, okay, well, why don't you just have an SUV convertible? And I think the Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet pretty much tells us why we shouldn't. Actually, it doesn't look that bad from the side, from that profile perspective.
No, that looks bad. No.
It's bulbous and ridiculous. Yeah. But you know what? It would tick the boxes for functionality and practicality in a drop top.
Certainly more so than Miata would. Yeah, I can't fight you there.
But I mean, with SUVs slowly, well, I guess they're not slowly taking over at this point. I mean, they're everywhere.
No, they've taken over.
Yeah, I love convertibles, and I'm more worried about the future of convertibles than I am about manuals. And I know save the manuals has been a thing for a long time. Nobody's talking about saving the convertibles, and that's a little unnerving to me because it's different than having a moonroof or some of these sky roofs where most of the roof retracts away. It's a different feeling for me. And okay, that's a slightly worse view of the Cross Cabriolet. That it sits up too high. It has just the ridiculously huge backside.
Okay.
That's a case study of proportions gone wrong. Proportions on a vehicle do matter.
Yeah.
But you know what? I want to hear from others on this podcast at motor1.com. I want to hear from other fans of convertibles, and not just high performance convertibles or even super sporty convertibles, just people that would like a nice, comfortable, practical daily driver where you can completely yank the roof off in just a matter of seconds, where you don't have to get out, you don't have to take sides off, you're not left with any bars over top, just a complete open air experience. Do you think that car could still exist today in a mid-size format? Front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive. Podcast at motor1.com. Let's start right here. Let's all join together and let's start the Save the Convertibles campaign.
I'm for that. If the manuals can be saved, why not the convertibles? I would argue it's easier to live with a convertible than a manual gearbox.
Sure, unless the convertible top gets stuck down.
Yeah,
that can be a little dicey.
Depends on where you live. If you live in Arizona, I think even if it was stuck down, you could live every day. But
it still rains occasionally in Arizona.
Maybe.
But anyway, there we go. There we go. Save the Convertibles. Podcast at motor1.com. Let's get this campaign started, people.
Yep. And speaking of convertibles, I will be talking about them more in just a moment, because now it is time to start answering some of your listener questions. And some of these are a few weeks old. Some of these are just very, very recent. But we've gotten kind of a lot of comments. You were sick that one week, so we got some comments there. And then there was last week, and we got a lot of comments to last week's episode. So
a lot of people talking about Maverick.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think rightfully so. It was kind of it kind of dropped a lot of jaws with the price. So, and again, we appreciate everybody growing on the channel with us. And
yeah, totally. We love your comments. We're going to read some negative comments here in a few minutes. So
darn right we are. And we've been saying all along that we're rambling about cars. We want to ramble with other people because we love cars, and you love cars. Let's all have a good time. So let's get going with our special Rambling About Cars fan episode.
Right. So this is a person, he emailed the week you were sick. As always, we don't use names just in case people don't want privacy issues. So I'm going to read the question, and then you and I are going to go through it. I've been looking forward to this one. So here's the question. I skimmed through the titles of your older episodes, and I couldn't find any reference to Alfa Romeo, my favorite mistake or brand. As you probably already know, the new CEO of Stellantis, Carlos Tavares, mentioned that the brand, along with Lancia and DS, will be given 10 years to prove their worth. As it stands, the Italian brand has announced more crossovers coming our way, while some Alfa execs are dreaming about bringing back names such as the GTV and Duetto, without anything actually being announced. My question is this. If you were Alfa CEO, where would you take Alfa Romeo as a brand, and what would you do to return them to profitability? So two things, two caveats here. First off, I don't know anything about Alfa Romeo's financials, so I can't say whether we would return them to profitability or not. Secondly, I am going to stick to that 10-year limit. Smith, you and I have 10 years to revitalize Alfa Romeo. I already have kind of a bit of a plan laid out. Do you mind if I go first?
No, go right ahead. I've been thinking about this too. It's a very difficult question to answer. I think we might each bring something different to the table. So maybe you and I should run Alfa Romeo.
Well, that's the thing that I wanted to mention that Alfa Romeo, if you're listening, this is free advice from two idiots. So listen to us, maybe. So here we go. I'm going to start. First off, take the current Giulia. This is a short-term thing. You're only going to make a few of these. We're going to start short-term, and then we're going to move long-term. Short-term, take a Giulia, shove the Hellcat in it, and sell 1,500 of them.
Oh, wow.
That'll get you immediate press. Won't it? Like,
go. I mean, yeah,
it's going to be a small run.
Hellcat, all the things.
Right. So to understand, Alfa Romeo is part of Stellantis. That's FCA and Peugeot, Citroën. So we kind of have to work with what's available. We know the Giulia's there. We know the Hellcat's there. We only have 10 years here. Shove one in and put it out just to get some good press. Okay. Part two, you announce that you are going, this is going to be a big press conference. You announce that you are going to do a continuation special of about 250, maybe 500 units of the 1966 Spider Duetto. And for any of our YouTube viewers, you'll be seeing that now. Oh, perfect. You got a Giulia there. And
I've got a Giulia.
Yep. And here is the Duetto. So we're going to do, just like Jaguar has done recently, we're going to do an exact replica of that. During the same press conference, you are going to announce this is the past of Alfa Romeo and we're bringing it back. But the future of Alfa Romeo is an electric Duetto. And what you're going to do at Alfa Romeo is that you are going to take the platform underneath the Maserati MC20, since you all belong to the same company. We know that an electric version of the MC20 is coming. You are going to put your own body panels on this, and that will be the new Duetto here. For our viewers right now, let's hope that's the right shot. Yeah. So that will be the monocoque underneath that will be your new Duetto. It will be electric. You then write whatever size check is necessary to Dustin Hoffman, and you do a Super Bowl ad in which you recreate the scene from The Graduate in that he's driving his Duetto. But instead of running out of gasoline and needing to run to the chapel, he just drives up, picks up Mrs. Robinson, or not Mrs. Robinson, Mrs. Robinson's daughter, puts her in the car, and they drive away. That's your Super Bowl ad. You have now revitalized interest and excitement about Alfa Romeo. Unfortunately for everyone out there, and unfortunately for me, the future of automobiles is electric. I don't necessarily love it. I still have a passion for internal combustion, but I also see the future. So from there, all future Alfa Romeos need to be electric. So what you've done is you've established you've got this Hellcat Giulia, you've got this continuation special Duetto, but this new electric Duetto, that's your starting point. And from there, you just reuse the old names and put them on modern EVs. So you stick with your Giulia, you have a Giulia Junior, which is a step underneath that. You don't really have, well, you've got that Jeep thing. Stick with the Stelvio and just kind of build from there. But maybe I don't have a 10-year plan for you, Alfa Romeo. I admit that now that I think about it. But I've got a 5-year plan for you. And I at least got a 5-year plan where people are going to be excited to see what you do. And you got to take it from there. So that's my Alfa Romeo plan.
Well, I got to say bravo for going in the direction of some excitement and some brand identification, and certainly pulling on the nostalgic heartstrings. The one thing that I see missing from your plan, and I hate to say this more than electric, crossovers and SUVs, man.
Yeah, no, I said you got to do another Stelvio, but it's going to be electric. But other than
I mean, we're talking about a continuation series and a Hellcat Julia. That's money that needs to go into some exciting, new, smallish crossover. I hate to say it. That has to go into some exciting, smallish crossover. I dig the continuation series, or even a newer version like you were talking about. That's electric with Dustin Hoffman. I mean, doing all of that in a Super Bowl ad, that would get so much attention. But Alfa, they've done Super Bowl ads, right? Do you remember a few years ago? I think when the
no, that was Maserati, right? With the Ghibli.
No, I'm talking like a few years ago with the Julia. I thought they, if I remember correctly, I mean, we're talking,
you're right.
We're talking a few years ago. They were making a big deal out of that, and then it seems like it just disappeared. So where I would start with my 10-year plan, and of course, this is based in the United States.
You're right. 2017 for the Julia. You're right. I forgot about that.
I mean, when's the last time you saw any sort of advertisement, any sort of PR, anything for Alfa Romeo in the United States?
It's been a while.
I think
there is 2017 was a commercial. I forgot. So there's your answer.
You can't sell even the best car in the world if nobody knows you have it. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is my marketing brain talking, but I'm going to look at vehicle lineup, and maybe this isn't a 10-year plan, but I'm going to look at vehicle lineup. Alfa still needs to have exciting, beautiful cars. I don't think Alfa can ever afford to completely step away from a small 2-seat convertible. So there we go. That could be part of my convertibles, save the convertibles plan and save Alfa plan. But there needs to be at least one exciting, really standout crossover. Doesn't have to be big. It can be just mid-size. It can even be small. Try to make it as affordable as possible. I know Alfa Romeo is still a little more up brand, but forget about trying to compete with BMW, with Mercedes. I mean, if you're in survival mode, you just need to come up with a decent looking car that's going to be fun and engaging to drive. And then you have to let people know that it's actually there. I think Alfa Romeo has like 100 and some dealers in the United States. 170, 180, somewhere around there. I think the last time I checked. You need to get more representation out there, Alfa. You need to have places where people can go to look at your cars. I mean, if there's 180, that breaks down to what, 50? An average of 3 or 4 dealers per state. And of course, I mean, I'm in South Dakota. I know there's no Alfa dealerships in South Dakota. I bet pretty sure there's none in Montana or Wyoming. And you know what? I mean, that's a very rural area, rightfully so. But you need to have more representation. You need to be spending more money on advertisement, on PR. Even if it's just doing something with your existing model, something interesting. You have a collaboration with some sort of influencer, something to keep you in the news cycle. Bruce, when is the last time we wrote an Alfa Romeo article that was sourced from Alfa Romeo directly? So I haven't done one personally in a while, and I mean I'm only part of the news team. But
I'm going to look this up while we talk about it. The last one I remember would be like the GTAM, which was 2 years ago. So it's got to be more recent than that.
I would hope there's something more recent, but the marketing team, the PR people at Alfa, you need to be doing stuff to at least keep your company's name in the minds of people, even if you don't have new products coming out. And it's really not that difficult to come up with something of interest. And yeah, I mean, that's where it starts. you have to remind people that Alpha is still here. They did a good job of that with the Giulia. You said that was way back in 2017. I still remember that commercial from 2017. I mean, that's how stirring it was, but then it just all kind of faded away. So you need to focus. You need to focus on that, Alpha.
To answer your question, the most recent official, it's not great. The most recent official Alfa Romeo news we have is 2021 Alfa Romeo Giulia and Stelvio lose trim levels in the United States, and that is from December 18th of 2020. So
now, but was that an announcement set out by Alfa? Or was that just us seeing, okay, hey, the new models are out. Oh, they've dropped some trims.
That is an official.
Unofficial.
That is how we headline that story, but it is an official Alfa Romeo.
I mean, we're still talking 6 months ago, and the news 6 months ago was, hey, we're cutting some models, or we're cutting some trim. So, yeah, not ideal. You guys, you need to be doing, you need to do what Porsche does. I mean, how many times do we see pictures from Porsche just talking about some of their owners?
Yeah.
With some classic Porsche. We know there are Alpha owners out there who have brilliant stories to tell. You need to be talking to those people. You need to be reminding people the passion of, and that's such a cliche for Alpha, right? But you need to be reminding people of that passion, that it exists. That's where it starts. And then you need to be working on at least one or two interesting crossovers. One at least has to be fairly reasonably priced. If you can get in an undercut BMW, if you can get in an undercut Mercedes with a good looking crossover that has some excitement to it. And Bruce, you're right. There needs to be some electric development. It's going to be tough. Especially if you're kind of strapped for cash, but you need to be looking at some partnerships, make something happen there. That would be my 10-year plan. We need some crossovers. We need some electric vehicles. We need to maintain Alpha's 2-seat, sexy convertible that's still a fun car to drive. Maybe the sports sedan goes on hiatus for a while because we know, as much as I love them, we know the buyers are going elsewhere. I mean, how many Urus SUVs has Lamborghini sold?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Versus anything else. So that's my plan. It goes back to it. It reminds people it's a PR marketing campaign, really.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I don't want to keep our entire second segment on Alfa Romeo, even though I know you and I could, because there's also the whole issue that Maserati exists. So in the Stellantis hierarchy, it can't really go higher than Maserati, or you can't have two brands within the same family competing against each other.
I wouldn't even try to go higher than Maserati.
Right. But let's move on, shall we?
But hey, thank you for that question. Such a great question.
Yeah, no, we could totally put a whole set. We just want to answer some more questions. But
yes,
that was a very good one.
Yes, it was.
So I know you have one you want to get to, but I have one I want to hit real quick.
Yep, go ahead.
This person, I'm only going to say his first name. I'm sure he'll know who he is since he commented. Brad asks, do you know what you're talking about? And Brad, I try to know what I'm talking about. I look up stuff for this show. I look up stuff every day for every episode we put out. I will admit that I don't know everything about cars. I cannot tell you the available rear end differential ratios for a 1968 Mustang for every engine that was available, but I know where to find it. So no, I don't always know what I'm talking about when I say it, but I can usually find out where to get the right answer about it.
And as far as me, I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about at all.
Okay.
I think cars, I mean, if I remember correctly, you use your feet to spin them up to get them going.
That's right.
There are two big rocks that serve as wheels, one in the front, one in the back. I really dig how you can go to those drive-in places and get those brontosaurus steaks or whatever it is they are. I wear out my shoes all the time trying to stop the damn thing. So, I mean, when it comes to cars, I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. And I wonder sometimes how I've made a 20-year career in the auto industry. It's crazy. It's crazy. But no, thanks for bringing that up. We're going to try harder to know what we're talking about. I got nothing else there.
Yeah.
I can take a question here. Let's see here. Somebody asked on YouTube, I don't have the person's name here. Does the Ford Maverick have a belt or chain driven CVT? And, I don't know exactly, because I mean, Maverick is so new. I don't know if Ford is doing something different. To the best of my knowledge, I believe Ford uses chain driven CVTs, what they've done in the past. I can't say for certain if the new Maverick will have that same transmission. I would err on the side that they do, because that's what they've done in the past. I don't see Ford having a completely different setup for this. But I mean, thanks for at least trusting that maybe I know a little bit what I'm talking about there on that question.
Yeah. So I know you kind of looked up some stuff about this, but someone asked us about comparing the Maverick to the Ford Explorer Sport Trac.
Yes, we actually had a few people, and I can't believe it didn't come up.
So I actually emailed this person back, and I addressed it from one way, kind of without the specs about it. And the specific question was, why didn't you compare the Maverick to the Sport Trac? And my reasoning was that, when we talk about cars, we generally try to compare new to new. So the Sport Trac is a vehicle that's not available anymore, so it's hard for us to compare the two of them because things have kind of changed since that time. Mm-hmm. Also, the Explorer Sport Trac was body on frame, while the Maverick is unibody. The Explorer Sport Trac had larger engines available, I think a V6 and some V8 options, whereas the Maverick is solely 4-cylinder. So it's not, they just weren't apples to apples comparisons, and that's why we chose to compare it against the Santa Cruz. Not Santa Cruz. Yeah, Santa Cruz. Sorry.
Yeah, Santa Cruz.
I was thinking Santa Fe. Sorry.
Santa Cruz, Santa Fe, Santa Monica.
Our boss always gets those confused. I thought I did it this time too.
Santa Barbarita.
Yeah. Santa Barbara.
One of those.
Sure.
One of those Santas. No, I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce, because Explorer Sport Trac, it's a larger vehicle. It's really, most people I think consider it like the first kind of mid-size crew cab.
It was kind of along with the Chevy Avalanche.
Truck like that.
That's where I see it, is that it was the Avalanche competitor. They were kind of, and they also had the Escalade. What was it, the EXT?
The Escalade EXT. Though those were definitely full size. The Explorer was kind of new territory at the time. Mm-hmm. But here's where it gets interesting, because I did look up some stats just to refresh myself, and you'll be surprised how similar a lot of these stats are between the Sport Trac,
really,
which was considerably larger than the Maverick. How similar they are. Now, the first generation Explorer Sport Trac, you could only get the V6, the 4-liter V6. I'm looking at my notes here because I can't remember offhand. 210 horsepower. So your base Maverick right now, 191.
Right, and then 250 from the turbo.
So reasonably close. Yeah, 250 for the turbo. The second generation Sport Tracs, they did offer the V8, the 4.6 V8 with those, in addition to the V6. Now the V8 was 292 horsepower, so a little bit more, but at the same time, a much larger vehicle, right? The bed size. This is what got me. The bed size on the Explorer Sport Trac, 50 inches. So that's what, like,
is that length or width? Sorry,
that length.
Okay.
So just over 4. It's a short bed.
Yeah,
just
that's
over
close.
4 feet. Technically the Maverick is at 4.5 feet. So technically the smaller Maverick has the bigger bed, but the Explorer, I don't have stats for interior space for the Maverick offhand, but the Explorer, I mean, you're gonna have more space inside the Explorer. But the bed was shorter. Payload anywhere from 14 up to, I think, 1,600 pounds for the Explorer Sport Trac.
Close. It's like 1,450 for the Maverick, right? Something like that. Yeah.
And
close.
And towing, I mean, obviously, depending on your engine, depending on your other options, 3,500 to 5,000 pounds, which is also that's a little bit more than.
Well, it depends, because you can get the Maverick with the option that can tow 4,000.
4,000, right? But what I'm saying, a base Maverick,
sure,
I think it's 2,000. So if you compare that to the base Sport Trac 3,500 versus 5,000 for the higher end Sport Trac and 4,000. So I mean, 4,000.
Just repeat. Maverick, what was the payload? I'm looking at the Maverick number now. What was the payload on the Sport Trac?
Between 1,400 and 5,000, or sorry, 1,400 and 5. Oh my God. I need to take another drink, folks. 1,400 pounds and 1,540 pounds.
Okay. And the Maverick is 1,500 pounds. So it's right in the middle.
And it's a considerably smaller vehicle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a very interesting comparison. The last Explorer Sport Trac was 2010. So, I mean, we're talking 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody's going to be cross-shopping a used Sport Trac with a new Maverick. But, I mean, if you are, the Maverick
person out there,
the Maverick will do pretty much everything the Sport Trac did. You've got a little bit more room in the bed, and you're going to have a lot better fuel economy. So
yeah,
but again, I mean, multiple people asked us that question. Thanks for bringing that up. That completely slipped my mind. Even with the I wish it would have happened, but didn't. Explorer Sport Trac Adrenaline, that would have been the cool ass SVT Lightning successor with 390 horsepower. So maybe Ford, if you're listening, you can do something with the Maverick, like a Maverick ST. Or even better, call it the Maverick Adrenaline. Maverick Adrenaline. Give it the bigger turbo engine. Yeah, we could do that.
I think we'll see more variants of the Maverick as time goes on. I think that's kind of natural. Just looking at what Ford has done with the Ranger and F-150, that there's going to be a more rugged version at some point. I would be shocked if there wasn't.
I think we'll likely see a more rugged version, but I think for anything else, Ford is going to sit back and watch and see if people actually buy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, great question there. What are the questions you got, Bruce?
So I just wanted to address this one real quick, because this is one that I replied to on our YouTube. And the person asked for our last episode, so are you going to address Tesla shattering production car records like nothing and talk just about another pickup truck while we were talking about the Maverick? And just what I wanted to say here is that it's not that Smith and I are anti-electric vehicle or anything like that, but our buddies at IEVs, not even our buddies, like IEVs and Motor One we're linked. Like, we talk to each other literally every day. They did more than half of their episode about that last week. So why would we step on their toes? Like, that's their specialty. And so we let them have that. Like, that's naturally for them. Just the same way they didn't spend any time talking about the Maverick, we didn't spend any time talking about the Model S Plaid. It's fine.
Right. And that's not to say that we won't talk about things like that.
No.
It's just for last week, that wasn't our agenda. And sorry,
we did that whole episode about electric trucks. Like, again, we are not anti-EV. It's just that last week there was some very big news in the truck SUV segment, and we thought you would enjoy that more than us talking about the Model S Plaid. And so that's why we did it.
And I imagine this will elicit the extreme hate of Tesla fans, or maybe Tesla fanboys, but we've learned over the years to not just absolutely go crazy on everything Elon Musk says, for reasons that I think should be obvious to anybody that's not drinking Tesla's Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I think Tesla, they're putting out some great vehicles. I'm not going to go crazy on the Model S Plaid until we actually see some out there and see some people actually doing stuff with them.
Speaking of which, I went on a Google rabbit hole yesterday or last night because I was thinking about that stupid yoke steering wheel, and I was looking up the history of the steering wheel, and sometime between the late 1890s, went into a car, and by the teens, it was just a standard feature. And the fact that Elon Musk thought that he was smarter than 100 years of engineers, that the yoke would be better than a steering wheel, just made me so mad last night as I was looking things up.
You know what? I'm not gonna trash the yoke until I have a chance to drive one, because maybe the way this one is designed, it feels kind of natural. But
the videos aren't suggesting that. But okay.
The videos aren't suggesting that. And I mean, yeah. Why we didn't talk about plaid last week? Because we already had our show set up ahead of time.
Yeah.
We knew what we were going to talk about, contrary to how it appears sometimes. We do try to plan these things at least a little bit in advance. I'm sure we'll talk about the Model S plaid at some point in the future, but we're not
whatever.
We're not gonna jump on everything that Musk comes out with, like, absolutely as soon as it happens, just because Tesla. We've seen how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Hate mail to podcast@motor1.com. We'll read it on the air. That's okay.
No, podcast@motor1.com.
What did I say?
I think you just said motor1.com. Maybe I misheard you.
Podcast@motor1.com. People should know it by now. Even when I've had a few to drink and I'm mumbling here a little bit. Like I said, again, Tesla making some great cars.
Totally.
But we're sorry, Tesla people, we're not drinking the Kool-Aid automatically.
No.
Can I go over a comment here?
Of course, Bruce, I'm out of mine. So yeah, go for it.
I think this is the one that you had responded to as well. I need to start responding to more of these. I apologize, everybody. And this is in relation to Maverick. There will be a ton of small businesses and people who want a cheap, economical runabout that will opt for the base model. Talking about the Maverick. It will certainly outsell Hyundai. The Santa Cruz is for chicks. Also, the Ford
with him there.
Yeah, I totally disagree too. Also, the Ford has an array of vehicles with different payload and towing ratings without encroaching in the Ranger. The Mazda has decent ratings. If you want more, the Ranger is at $28,000. It is for you. Some valid points there for sure. I think you're absolutely
like the shit car. Like, don't do that.
Don't
be that guy, dude.
That's just kind of gross, man. It's totally not a chick vehicle. I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks a lot more interesting, a lot more exciting than Maverick. But as we said last week, Ford, they don't need to be daring or exciting. They are the staple pickup truck manufacturer of the United States. Mm-hmm. All they need to do is put out something that's familiar, that's comfortable. They already have that. They have that history to go on already. And you're absolutely right. I think companies will soak up the Maverick in its base model XL trim with a Steelies and that hybrid powertrain that Ford says will get 40 miles per gallon in the city, with a 4.5-foot bed, the way they've designed it, where you can haul 4x8 sheets of plywood if you need to. I think that's going to have some fantastic capability for businesses. And I see a lot of businesses. I see a lot of those going to fleets. I don't think the Hyundai will have that same kind of fleet market. And no, I don't think Hyundai will sell nearly as many Santa Cruz trucks as Ford will sell Mavericks. I think the people that are going to buy the Santa Cruz are the ones that aren't quite as truck oriented, but still want some of that truck capability. I think the people that are going to buy Santa Cruz aren't going to be as interested in off-road flavor as you will Maverick. I know I would buy Santa Cruz and just street truck the hell out of it. If you get it with
that term in a while,
just street truck the hell out of it. If you get it with the 2.5 turbo with the all-wheel drive, that's going to be a quick little truck, and it's going to be a fun little truck to drive, and it's going to have the dual clutch transmission. I think Hyundai can have a winner with that if they market it correctly, and provided they understand that they don't need to go head to head with Ford and the Maverick, because I think they're both compact trucks, but I think they're going to be targeted at completely different audiences. And no, the Hyundai Santa Cruz isn't targeted at being a chick vehicle. This right. Come on, man. It's 2021 already. Get with the program.
Right. And that was the comment that I made, but I did agree with him. I think that fleets or, commercial buyers are really going to like the Maverick. To build off what you said, I think the Maverick, especially with the 4,000 pound tow rating, that it is going to be, I think a lot of suburban landscaping companies are going to love it, because you can load a mower onto a small trailer. You could have your weed whacker, your leaf blower in the bed, and you can go through tighter areas like the suburbs and get your job done. And there are a lot of those folks out there running those businesses, and this is going to be an ideal truck for that, just because of the maneuverability, the size, the payload. Like, it's really going to work for that. And you're reminding me, you were talking about street trucks, or mini trucks as I remember them being called. I swear, if I accidentally maybe I picked this up by osmosis and I saw it like some car club when I was in high school or something like that. I swear that when I was in high school, there was a mini truck club called the Sweet and Lowdown, as in, sweet and low, like the fake sugar. They called themselves the Sweet and
Sweet and Lowdown.
Yeah. I swear that was a real thing. If I'm making that up and I by osmosis pick that up somewhere, tell me I'm wrong. But yeah, the mini truck scene of the early 90s, maybe it could come back with the Maverick, the Santa Cruz, and who knows if Dodge and Chevy will have one eventually as well.
Well, full disclosure, once upon a time, I was very close to buying a Mitsubishi Mighty Max. Do you remember those trucks?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just a little single cab, rear wheel drive. It had a 5-speed. It wasn't particularly fast, but it was just a fun little truck to drive. And it had a fair amount of space in the bed. I mean, it wasn't, it was considerably bigger than you would have with Maverick or Santa Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was really close to buying it. We had it at the dealership that I worked at while I was in college, and I was tempted. I ended up getting, what did I get? Was that when I got my first Taurus show, or was that when I got?
That was a hell of an upgrade then. I would definitely take a Taurus show over a Mighty Max.
Well, I'm trying to think if I already had the show at that point. No, I think I didn't have the show at that point. Okay. I just had a regular Taurus, and it was like, oh, I really want something different. I need to get out of this older Taurus. And then, working at a used car dealer, it had its perks. I told them what I wanted. They found one at an auction, so I bought it wholesale.
Cool.
And that led me down the Taurus show rabbit hole. That could be its whole episode by itself. I think that's all I got here for questions.
That's basically all. We had some very nice, hey, good episode. Thanks for talking about, but nothing to respond to. So yeah.
Thanks for listening.
That. We love talking about that, especially, a week like this where, it's not that there's no automotive news happening, but last week we had, Maverick. We could have talked about Model S Plaid. You had Land Cruiser, things like that. Whereas this week, it's a little bit of a slower week. And we are serious when we say that, if you have a cool project car that you want to share with us, send it to us. If you're doing something interesting, if you're, rallycross, autocross, something like that, you've got kind of a cool build, we're into it. So yeah,
guess what?
Talking to you guys.
We surf YouTube also. We also see all of these cool videos that pop up. We get a chance to report on some of them. Maybe you're making some of these videos. Maybe you're trying to get something going on your YouTube channel with a project car. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not racing in Mexico, we can talk about it, man. Mexico. Hey, Bruce.
I hate that.
We've got a little bit of time here.
Yeah.
Can I throw something of a curveball at you?
Yeah, I'm here.
And listeners, we need your help on this too. So here's the story. I have a dear friend of mine. She lives back in Michigan. Okay. She's looking for a new vehicle, or a new to her vehicle.
Okay, so it can be a few years old.
Yep, a few years old. Price range of around $250 to $300 a month. Something, she has a quad that she pulls, so something that can pull a small trailer, but she also has a huge commute. It's like a 60-mile one-way commute. And it's in a rural part of the state, so it's not city traffic. But she's looking for something that can handle snow, because Michigan.
Yeah. And
she's looking for something that's at least fairly decent on mileage, and something that can at least tow that quad, which a 1,500 pound rating, I think, should be just fine for that. It's not It's not going to be a huge vehicle or anything.
Right.
But I mean, what's out there that she can consider? And another thing to keep in mind, kind of a rural area. So
yeah,
I mean, you're looking at really just your Detroit automakers for dealerships, unless you want to travel.
I can't even say like Honda.
A pretty good distance. Well, I had actually suggested Honda. I said, if you're,
I was thinking Pilot was the first thing that came to my mind, or maybe Pilot was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, I suggested CRV, and I said, if you're getting used, you're probably better off finding a good independent garage as opposed to a dealership, because you'll end up paying a lot more at dealerships, and sometimes the service isn't better if you can find a really good local shop.
Yeah.
But I mean,
my car goes to a local shop. We've got a really good guy here in town. He only does foreign stuff, and he's fantastic. So
same for me here in Rapid City. My Mazda goes to an independent shop instead of the Mazda dealer that's right here. But still, I mean that precludes something, like Kia or Hyundai or some of the other, some of the, even maybe Mazda. But I think like Toyota and Honda, I think that would still be good. I mean, what are some recommendations here? And because that's, I mean, a 60-mile one-way commute is
so
huge.
200 to 300 means that she's going to finance it. That even if it's used, she's not going to pay for it outright. Like, give me a gross number, like a net number on.
I'm just going on a. I'm just going on a payment. I would assume. I mean, I guess if I was doing that, I wouldn't want to do any more than like a 4-year finance. So if you have 12 plus a trade in or something, so maybe 15,000 range.
Okay.
I would think you could have something in that monthly payment range with a decent finance term for about 15 grand. Maybe 20 if you have a little bit more down. I don't know.
Sure,
I don't know what's available for down or a trade in, but maybe we just call it under 20.
Cool.
So I was thinking Honda CR-V, and folks, listeners, rambling about cars, people, email us podcast@motor1.com with some suggestions. She needs some help. She's trying to figure this out. Wants to have something by the end of the year. I said, you know what? I'll talk to some of our rambling about cars people, because you folks are awesome. And this is a question that comes up a lot, I think, with a lot of people that know about cars. And there are always interesting choices and some surprising vehicles that might show up and just do the job perfectly. I mean, my first thought was, okay, a CR-V is going to be decent on mileage. And then I even said, you know what, if you can hold out until Maverick arrives, a base model Maverick.
Yeah.
Again, depending on the down payment.
Higher. Yeah.
But I mean, especially if it's the hybrid, if it's able to pull that good of fuel mileage.
Still, so this is just me. I would rather buy a slightly used 2-3 year old plus car and let someone else take the depreciation hit.
Oh yeah.
Rather than me taking it. So I'm trying to think like, something like that, like 15-ish grand. I agree. CR-V. I think Pilot. I mean,
I was thinking RAV4 also, but the RAV doesn't have quite as impressive a fuel economy as you would expect.
Right.
I think CR-V is really the king on economy, and I keep coming back to that just because.
Is she single? Like, are there kids involved? Pets?
Single pets.
Okay, then CR-V, yeah.
Don't need a huge family vehicle.
Then,
no 7-passenger or anything like that. But
I mean, maybe if she wanted to go, although it's going to be hard to find at the price. I was thinking maybe a Wrangler, like a 2-door Wrangler, but price is going to be because those things have such high resale.
They hold their resale just something fierce, and mileage really isn't that great with a Wrangler either.
True, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, that's the part that I keep coming back to. With that kind of commute, you wouldn't need much of a hike in fuel prices right now to just absolutely destroy your bank account, right?
Yeah, you're right.
If that's 60 miles one way, approximately 120-mile round trip, that's going to eat up fuel in a hurry. I remember when I was in Southeast Michigan, when the fuel prices really spiked up. That was when I actually got my 2000 Metro 3-door, 3-cylinder, 5-speed that I tweeted out last week. If you want to follow me on Twitter at CHWriting, I'm going to be tweeting out some of the cars I've owned over the years to show you that I sometimes know what I'm talking about. But that was actually the catalyst for me finding that car, because I was commuting from Ann Arbor to Dearborn, every day.
It's not that was bad. That's what, 25 miles each
no,
way?
It was 30. Well,
okay.
I wasn't Ann Arbor. I was Whitmore Lake, which is north of Ann Arbor. So I was around 35, 40 miles one way. And I was driving. Well, I had a Taurus show at the time. Imagine that. And I wanted something that was still better on fuel economy. And I found that little 2000 Metro, just 3-cylinder, 5-speed. And as I said in my tweet, for reasons I can't explain, I absolutely loved the car. I actually just felt like I could pick it up, put it in my pocket. No, it wasn't fast, but I could just put it wherever I wanted. And, flat out on the highway was about 80 miles an hour, and I would still get 40 miles to the gallon. That car paid for itself. It literally paid for itself within 2 months with all that I saved on fuel prices.
So I got one for you as I was thinking about this. Mm-hmm. So it does the fuel economy. It could tow. What about a Ridgeline?
Oh, I hadn't considered Ridgeline. That completely fell off my radar. I haven't even looked those up. What are those going for? Retail wise.
Look it up, but I bet
you've got the towing capability, you've got some size, you've got cargo in the bed.
It's unibody, so it's got all that.
It's got ride height to get you through the snow.
Yep. Hold on, let me see.
For the listeners, this is completely unplanned, and Bruce, I apologize. I was gonna mention this before we started the broadcast, and I completely forgot. And then as we were winding down, I was like, oh yeah, I was going to try to talk about that. So I apologize for throwing a fast one here, but this is kind of the stuff that I love to talk about. I think you love it too. When somebody asks you what kind of a car should I get, it's like your hands slapped together. It's like, well, this is exactly what I do. Let me see what we can come up with. I'm
looking at a 2017 right now for 27.8, which means if you wheel and deal, that's $25,000, and it's got 100,000 miles on it.
Those that might be a little out of the range. Okay. What if you go? I wonder if you can go a little bit older.
Oh, totally.
Let's see.
Here's a 2011 for $15,000.
Okay, that might not.
Here's a 2008 for 10.
What do they got for mileage?
The 2011 I just said has 106,000. The 2008 has 155,000. And for anyone who cares, we are literally just doing this live. This is as of 50 miles from Toledo, Ohio. So that's what they cost in northwestern Ohio, southeast Michigan. And
the mileage. I'm just doing a quick look up here. 21 highway. It's not. It sort of has pickup truck mileage, even though it's a very different.
I think you're going to have a trade off. Like you can.
Yeah.
You're either going to get a vehicle that's capable of doing the towing and hauling and off-road stuff like that, or you're going to get good fuel economy, and it's hard to it's going to be hard to do both.
Yeah. Well, that's why I brought it up here, because as I was thinking about it, it's like, wow, that is a really good question. That is a really narrow category, but I think it's a category that applies to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because there's that monthly payment, $250, $300. A lot of, that's something that I think a lot of people can afford.
Yeah, I think that's pretty. Yeah.
And the capability and the fuel mileage. Yeah, that's a great question, a great category.
Okay. So, well, listeners, are we missing something? Is there something that you could both tow small amounts of weight? You said what, 1,500, 2,000 pounds?
I would estimate right there. I don't know anything about the quad, but I don't see it being more than 1,500 all total with a trailer and the quad, right? So
sure. So listeners, if there's something that could tow, that's a relatively small amount of weight, but still that you could use a commuter vehicle and is relatively affordable, probably 2 to 3 years old, used. Is there something we're missing?
Let
like
us know.
the Ridgeline idea. Wrangler's going to be too expensive.
What's
And
the bed
especially
size
in-
on a What's the bed size on a Ridgeline? I wonder if the quad could just fit in the back.
I don't think
Forget about
so.
towing.
That's going to be
Wow.
tiny.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
probably,
I think it was a dirt bike maybe, but not a quad.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway. Yeah.
Well, podcast at motor1.com. There's a person that needs your help, and I think there are millions and millions of people looking for vehicles in that same category. Let's have a little bit of a discussion about that maybe next week. Email us your thoughts on how this car could just be the end-all be-all for what my friend in Michigan needs here.
Totally. And as always, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Whenever you happen to be listening, we appreciate you listening, and we thank you for joining us. So, bye-bye.
See ya.